What was it, if you even know, that made you feel like, no, I don't care if this ends my marriage. I don't care if I end up being viewed as an apostate. As awful as I know that was for my mom and for me and my kids, I'm going to kind of be authentic anyway. Do you know what it was?
I do. I have two very specific things. It was knowing that I was setting a bad example for my children.
What do you mean?
I was showing them that women stay quiet. Women do eat their feelings. Women are not honest. Women just do what they're told to do. I was showing them that through my actions. And my kids are wicked intelligent. They saw it. They knew how I felt. They knew who I really was. And yet I would act differently in order to please the community.
You didn't want to do that to your kids. You didn't want to hurt your kids by living inauthentically.
Yeah. So that was 50%. And then the other 50% was I have known 10 kids, myself personally, hugged them, looked them in the eye, not incredibly close, but I was able to connect with them. 10 kids that have killed themselves because they were Mormon and gay, and specifically said it in their suicide notes.
10?
Mm-hmm. I've given speeches to over 1 million kids in 18 years, so I've been able to reach a lot of kids through my speeches. And so I get sometimes 40 to 50 in Instagram DMs a day.
And what was your experience for why being Mormon was causing, because the church wants to always say it's the altitude, it's the Mountain West region. The church never wants to own, and we've got a great episode coming out with the Lang family where we address this very specifically in a very powerful way. Wow. So I can't wait for that. The Langs are amazing, all of them. But the church never wants to take responsibility that they create an environment that would make an LGBTQ youth want to end their life. Can you tell us what you observed and why you felt like the church had some responsibility for that? What was it that made you think that?
The church is absolutely responsible for it. So here's why. We know that the actual rule, any active LDS person now would say, you can be gay. It's okay to be gay. You just can't live that lifestyle. So you have to be celibate for your entire life. You can't be in a homosexual relationship. That's the policy. So if anyone has any questions on that, confirm that anywhere you want. That's the policy. So for a child, sometimes kids know they're gay when they're 6 years old, 12 years old.
Yep.
And so for these kids growing up, knowing they are gay, it's who they are. It's not a choice. It's who they are. And thinking, okay, I'm already, just because I'm gay, I'm already a disappointment. Easy for my family, my LDS family. I'm already something that's shameful. I'm already something that makes other people feel uncomfortable. You know, when they're around me, they feel uncomfortable. This is what kids have told me specifically. And then on top of all that, they don't get to have a relationship ever. They just have to go through their entire life alone, when almost everything in our entire society, every movie, every book, anything that has anything to do with romance shows how beautiful a relationship is.
How about every sacrament meeting?
Thank you. Exactly.
Every youth conference, every EFY, right?
Everything tells them that is the end all be all. And they don't get to have it.
To have an eternal family.
To have love, yes.
Yeah.
And they don't get to have it. So, I mean, the last one was this beautiful girl named Katie in Pennsylvania. And it was last year I met her at her high school. And it was only 3 or 4 months ago from right now that she killed herself. She shot herself in the head, which is really, really rare for girls. It's the boys who usually choose that method. This girl wanted to die so badly and left a note that said, I will never be accepted by my family. I will never be accepted by my community because I'm Mormon and gay. She wrote it in her note. Like, she wanted to die that badly because that was a better alternative than to live this life. It's unacceptable. It's just so unacceptable. And if anyone wants to come at me and tell me I'm going to encourage kids to leave by doing this, especially for Truth Camp or by even being on Mormon Stories or by being outspoken, I will show them a picture of this beautiful girl and I will say, what would you do? Answer that question for me. I need to know, what would you do? How would you prevent this precious, beautiful, amazing girl from taking her life? What is your solution? Because I'm doing the very best I can to try to prevent this from happening again, because it can't happen again. But it's going to. It's going to.
Happens every month.
It's so awful. And Utah has like one of the highest like suicide rates for teenagers.
It's the number one cause of death for teenagers, as far as I understand it.
It is so unacceptable.
And there's a 1-2 punch. It's not just you can never have love in your entire life to someone you're attracted to. It's that you're broken in this life, and the only way to fix it is once you're dead, Heavenly Father will fix you in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And the twisted, unfortunate consequence of that awful, terrible, evil, pernicious doctrine is the kids are like, well, if that's the only way I can get fixed, let's just speed it up.
Exactly.
Let's just get there.
It's so wrong on so many levels, and I will shout that from the rooftops, because we have to try to fix it. I'm doing everything I can possibly think of to try to offer a program that might be able to help that exact thing, that specific thing. And a lot of the kids that came to this last EFT were beautiful rainbow kids, and they were so wonderful. So
Trans kids.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to give me any grief about this, I have no problem coming right back at them. What are you going to do about it? It's a big, big problem. It's unacceptable to me.
And do you think people just, they don't confront it unless they have, I guess, like a child that comes out as gay? They don't have to confront it until it's in their face what the church's doctrine around LGBTQ people is, until, like with the Lang interview, if you guys are going to be able to watch that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it'll be out this week, about the real life consequences of somebody having such strong suicidal tendencies, trying to fit within a box that they weren't meant to fit within. So I wanted to ask, for people who are listening, who are, you could say progressive Mormons, and they would think, well, I don't have these bad views about Mormon
I love gay
teachings.
people.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, if my kid comes out, I would accept them. What is your message for people who are still trying to live within the Mormon framework, still completely active in the church, but they're still raising their children with all of the same, I guess, I don't know if...
They think of themselves as LGBT affirming.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a strong opinion about this, and a lot of people aren't going to like it. It's going to be very harsh, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's great that you want that. It's great that you want to be LDS and support gay people. Great. That's a nice idea. But just be aware that it doesn't matter if you're nice. They know what you believe. They know you believe that they're not worthy of having love in this life. That's what they believe. So it's not enough.
Also, parents can teach Mormon parents can teach their LGBTQ kids, oh, we love you, we accept you, you're perfect the way you are. But by raising them in the church, they're getting all the homophobic, damaging messages in general conference, at youth conferences, with side comments made by youth leaders and other kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So it almost doesn't matter how affirming the parents are.
Yeah.
You are still setting your kids up for the toxicity by putting them in the system.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I don't think it's enough. I think at some point you have to choose. You're going to have to choose. Like, are you going to actually be an ally or the church? You can't have both. That's my opinion, and I know that's really harsh, and I want to be very clear. If anyone just came to me and we weren't talking about this in a Mormon context, I would approach it very, very empathetically, and I would say, I will meet you exactly where you are. Let's talk through this. Here's how you can just show love. That's a totally different conversation, but for this context, that's my personal belief.
I also have to add that, like, let's just say 10 or 20 years ago, there'd be the argument, well, that's just like 1 to 5%. I mean, it's defying Christ's leave the 99 to go after the one. That attitude in and of itself is unchristian and sort of anti-Christian, because, there would have been this attitude of like, well, it's just 1 to 5%. It's just 1 to 5 out of 100 kids. So we're not going to worry about that. Now we're getting data back about Gen Z Mormons, not just Gen Z youth across the United States. Up to 20% of Gen Z Mormon youth are either sexually diverse or gender diverse or both. So you're talking about you have 4 or 5 kids, one of your kids for sure is going to be in that category. So that, and if it's not your immediate kids, it'll be your nieces and nephews, your grandkids for sure.
That's right.
So this is touching everyone, and it's going to just become this problem that swamps the church, really.
Yeah. And if it wasn't truly life or death, right? Like, I mean, it is absolutely life or death for these kids. And for like what you were saying, where there's just a lot of people who say, I would love to be an advocate. Like if my kid came out, I would be supportive. But until then, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to address it. They don't want to go to Pride. You know what I mean? They don't want to like actively engage in the conversation. They're very comfortable just saying, this is the doctrine and this is just what needs to happen. And they stay in that thinking, but it really just comes down always, Carah, to empathy over orthodoxy. You cannot have both. You can't when it comes to this. And I think quite a few things, but like it's at some point, it has to be a decision.
And this is not to shame anyone who is stuck in this in-between where their whole life revolves around being in the church and this is their community, but they also want to do their best job that they can to be an ally. It is just, I think, coming down to an acknowledgement that when push comes to shove, like we really hope that people will step up on the empathy side and not the orthodoxy side to just these systems that have been in place, this religion that was created in a time before we had such better data and understanding of the diversity of the spectrum of human sexuality and gender orientation. As times change and things progress, the church is either going to progress with the times, and as we've known, they're usually a little bit behind, and it's agitators like us, whether it's from the outside in, bottom up, it's people agitating and making enough of a stir where things need to be said. And there's still empathy that I think all three of us are trying to get across for people who are trying to walk that fine line within the system while still standing up for what's right.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I really do approach that with a lot of empathy. But for this part, I do feel comfortable saying it so directly and harshly that it does have to be a choice at some point because it's life and death.
Right on.
Because there are kids that are killing themselves. I think if it wasn't that black and white in my mind, then I would probably have a little more empathy. But I do have a lot of empathy because I have a lot of hope for people who are in the church who truly care about our LGBT kids. I think they truly do care about them, and they're so stuck. They're so stuck. They want to be a good Mormon, but they also really love these kids, and that's a hard place to be. So I have empathy for that, for sure. It's just a hard situation.